Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the very first Westchester Model United Nations Conference that's sponsored by the United Nations Association of Westchester. My name is Raina Cadaville, and I'm the Secretary General and founder of this conference. My secretariat and I have been planning for today for over a year now, and it is absolutely incredible to see all of you here today. Before I go on, I want to introduce and thank my wonderful secretariat, Paul Presendu, Brandon Hermosa Ricci, and Adair Martinez, who cannot be here today. You'll be hearing from them later on. I also want to thank the amazing board of the United Nations Association of Westchester, especially President Yana Edwards and Vice President Marcia Brewster, all of whom have supported this conference above and beyond. I also want to thank all of the chairs who are volunteering their time to moderate debate here today, and the L2 Web Media Group for making it possible for us to be here together virtually. And finally, I want to thank all of you for taking the time to thoughtfully consider today's topics: education in the age of COVID and the protection of UNESCO World Heritage Sites, and coming here to simulate the role of ambassadors of the United Nations. Personally, I've been doing Model UN for 13 years now. I was a delegate for the first time when I was 10, sitting in your shoes. And since then, I've run dozens of conferences, coached an award-winning high school team, traveled all over the world from Beijing to Montreal to Madrid, just because and for Model UN. It's given me some of my best friends and most memorable experiences, and very early on, it gave me my speaking voice. And I know that it will do the same for you. The more you stick with it, the better speakers you'll become, the better debaters you'll become, and the more opportunities will be open to you. And it is a perfect way to get a taste for what some of you, I'm sure, will be doing someday in your diplomatic careers at the United Nations. But my entry into work with the UN first came from the United Nations Association. So I'm excited to welcome my Director General and Young Professionals Co-Chair, Paul Presendu, to introduce you to UNA Westchester and the Young Professionals Program.
Good afternoon, everyone. On top of serving as Director General of this Model United Nations Conference, I'm proud to serve as the co-chair for the Westchester County Chapter of the United Nations Association's Young Professionals Program. The United Nations Association was founded in 1943 to empower and promote residents in America to support the mission of the United Nations. By you participating in this program and developing your skills in public speaking and consensus building, you can join the Young Professionals Program to continue to develop and become the future diplomats that this world needs. We're proud to extend our membership to each and one of you to join our ranks and support our mission to supporting members of the United States of America to be aware of the international community that we are part of and the issues that we can localize here or in your own respective local communities. Our next speaker is going to be Ambassador Francis Okello, who is a proud member of the United Nations Association of Westchester County. Ambassador Okello has an extensive background in diplomacy, serving as a Ugandan ambassador to Belgium, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, Kenya, and the European Union. Ambassador Okello also served as a United Nations Special Envoy to Sierra Leone, where he successfully mediated a peace agreement that ended a 9-year civil war. We're proud to have Ambassador Okello as an active member of the United Nations Association of Westchester County, and hopefully we'll be proud to have each and every one of you as a member of our chapter or as a member of our international organization. Thank you.
Fellow members of the United Nations Association, it is a great pleasure and honor for me to have been invited to say a few words of welcome to you as you begin your first Westchester Model United Nations Conference. Understandably, you must all be very excited as you look forward to participating in this conference, during which you will be representing different countries of the world, expressing ideas and exchanging views on various issues facing those countries you represent at this conference. And that's really cool, isn't it? A Model United Nations Conference is more than just an exercise in imitating, perhaps with some amusements, the way the United Nations works. It is a serious business of actually preparing you to participate effectively in the affairs of the world, a world you will be in charge of as adults and in your various careers. United Nations is actually a microcosm of the real world. It represents almost all countries of the world, their governments, various peoples, cultures, diverse political systems, religious beliefs, and so forth. The UN is indeed a large human family which embraces all peoples of the world, and it aims to ensure that all these people live in peace and security. And it pursues this goal by promoting mutual understanding, tolerance, cooperation among the countries of the world. So this is a big challenge for the UN. And that's why this Model UN conference is going to prepare you to help the United Nations meet this challenge. And so I would encourage each of you to participate actively and fully in this conference, while at the same time enjoying the experience. And you'll be glad you did. I've been associated with the UN in various ways for over 35 years. From an early age, growing up in my native Uganda, perhaps by temperament and education, I've always been fascinated by the world and its peoples, beginning with observing the different tribes and cultures and languages in my country and the community all around me. And this fascination eventually developed into a definite desire and decision to pursue a career in the diplomatic and international field. Upon graduating from university, I was thrilled when I was accepted into the Foreign Service of my country, and shortly thereafter posted to our permanent mission to the UN in New York in early 1970. And that was the beginning of a fascinating and challenging, exciting career for my life, which lasted until retirement. At the UN in New York, I was able to participate in the meetings of the General Assembly in its various committees, attending several international conferences sponsored by the UN, and able to travel widely and often. Because this exposure expanded my mental horizon and outlook, as well as sharpened my diplomatic skills and understandings of the world. And for a period of about 6 years, I worked with the United Nations Secretariat as a staff member. And this opportunity enabled me to experience the workings of the United Nations from the inside, from the point of view of those dedicated men and women who work there to carry out the policies and decisions of the General Assembly. A high point in my foreign service was when I was appointed ambassador to the now European Union, serving at the same time as ambassador to Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. And my main job there was to help promote the special relationship in aid and trade between the European Union and a large grouping of African, Caribbean, and Pacific countries. That was a fascinating 5-year experience for me. When I decided to take a more permanent employment with the UN, I was assigned to serve in a number of countries, namely Namibia, in Haiti, in Afghanistan, in Sierra Leone, in the Middle East, principally in Israel, and with the Palestinian Authority in Gaza. But I can tell you that the high point of my diplomatic career with the UN was my appointment as a UN Special Envoy of the Secretary General, which is the equivalent of an ambassador, to the West African country of Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone, as you heard in the introduction, was then embroiled in a bitter, bloody, and destructive civil war. And in my mandate there was to lead the United Nations efforts in cooperation with the governments of the countries in the region, especially Nigeria, Ghana, Guinea, Mali, Senegal, and others, to mediate ceasefire between the government of Sierra Leone and the rebel forces in the country. After 2 years of hard work, and with the support of the United States and Britain and the Security Council, we were able to achieve a ceasefire and successfully negotiate and formally sign a peace agreement in July of 1999. And that peace agreement, by the way, is still holding, and the country of Sierra Leone has enjoyed peace and stability to this day. But the conflict in the Middle East between Israel and the Palestinians is much more complicated and has been in existence for many years. And during my 4 years in the Middle East, where I served as the deputy head of the UN peace mission there, our office prepared a draft roadmap for peace in the Middle East, which was approved by the Security Council and has since contributed to the search for peace in the Middle East. And so that briefly is an overview of my diplomatic story. It has been a rewarding and fulfilling experience for me. Fellow members of UNA and friends, an important and indispensable tool which the United Nations uses in the search for peace, in the service for peace, international security, and in the promotion of mutual understanding and tolerance in the world is diplomacy. And the essential components of this diplomacy is the art of negotiation, skills of persuasion, and expertise in resolving conflicts. And the UN has developed these skills over a period of many years. And the Secretary General and his team of well-trained, experienced special envoys and special representatives use this tool of diplomacy extensively and often in addressing problems and conflicts in the world. And often they successfully do that. And the countries of the world have come to rely on the UN for help in this regard. But these UN experts, these negotiators, these diplomats, do grow old. They age, and sooner or later they have to retire from active service and will need to be replaced by younger people like yourselves. I would therefore urge and encourage those among you who are so inclined to seriously consider pursuing a career in diplomacy and international relations, either with the UN directly or with your respective countries and institutions. While a formal training in diplomacy and international relations is immensely helpful, it actually begins with your intense interest in the affairs of the world around you, your community. You must cultivate an open mind. Try to learn as much as you can about other countries, their forms of government, their peoples, their culture, and their special contribution to the human society. You will be fascinated by what you discover and learn. But most important of all, the art of diplomacy begins with yourself, who you are as a human being, how you see and value yourself, your positive self-image, and your sense of self-worth, the manner you treat and respect your fellow human beings. It all begins there, with you. Remember this, the way you do anything is the way you do everything. It is just that simple. As you learn more about the world and its affairs, you will soon realize at the end of the day that we really are one human family with basically the same needs, the same desires, the same fears, and the same deep yearning for peace and the good life. We realize that what is good for us is good for others as well. And that's the common good. Diplomacy is a powerful tool to achieving these goals. And this Model United Nations Conference is going to help you and show you the way. So, dear friends and members of the UNA and friends, with these few remarks, I want to wish you all success in this first Model United Nations Conference. Thank you very much.
So thank you so much, Ambassador Aquilo. Now let's move on to the part of the conference where the students get to step into your shoes. In just a couple of minutes, this live stream will end and you'll be using the sessions button on the left side of your screen to join the committee you have been assigned to, World Health Organization or UNESCO. Please use the edit profile button in the top right to change your name on the platform to the country you are representing in committee, as well as your first name. So I would say Reina and United States, if that's the country I'm representing. Then you'll meet your chairs who will take attendance and you'll be invited to give your opening speeches. After that, we'll be moving into alternating sessions of moderated caucus or formal debate, and then for half an hour, and then unmoderated caucus or informal debate for 15 minutes. During formal debate time, you're welcome to propose topics to discuss and speak in turn about your country's priorities for the issues of the committee. During unmoderated caucus, you're encouraged to work with other delegates or independently to write resolutions to solve the issues of the committee. Keep in mind Ambassador Okelo's words of wisdom as you debate. You can use the chat function to the right of your screen to communicate with other delegates and support their ideas or ask for support of your own. You'll be asked to submit your resolutions to the email addresses provided by your chairs at least half an hour before the end of the conference. At the end, we'll all return to this main stage for the awards ceremony. We'll be announcing awards for Best Delegate, Best Negotiator, and Best Public Speaker. So make sure to tune back in. Thank you all once again for being here, and best of luck in your negotiations.
Korea is almost as large as that between BRICS nations. Members are too similar in some key areas. All members, apart from Russia, hold huge foreign reserves, 15 to 35% GDP, and have low external debt, 15 to 37% of GDP. Apart from Russia, they are heavily integrated into West consumer good production for the West. BRICS nations compete in third world markets. In many areas, the clothing from China, India, and Brazil through economic influence in Africa, China, South Africa, and India is international aircraft and military, but is sap standardization and marginalized internal BRIC economic relations. And fifth, diversity of cultures. Phases of economic development ideologies, definitions of poverty, and other cultural differences means BRIC members lack common understandings about priorities that are necessary for productive sharing of experiences. And the delegate of France would just like to know how this proposal, how your resolution addresses what was put forth in the 2019 World Economic Forum. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, but that's a stranger talking about the economy of China. I'm sorry, we cannot accept that. No, China is a world power economy, and we are moving forward with our agendas. That is correct. But
the delegation.
Go ahead.
The delegation of Brazil would like to thank the delegation of China for their comments, as well as the delegation of France for the insightful statistics they've provided with us today. Oh, excuse me, that frightened me a little bit. So the delegation of Brazil would like to combat the assumptions made by the delegation of France, because what is in the economic interest of a country may not be exactly aligned with what is in the ecosystemic interest of a country. So the delegation of France has presented a lot of statistics on diversity of economies and trade and GDP. However, these are not directly related to our stances on climate change. We believe that the issue of climate change should not be considered as an economic issue, or should not be entirely considered as an economic issue, but should be considered with more ethical thought and more philosophical consideration. Rather than prioritizing the economic aspect of the issue, we should also include the ideological aspect of the issue with at least as much weight. I would like to thank the delegation of France again for their commentary.
Thank you, honorable delegates.
So at this time, we will move to a vote regarding this resolution, and for just to make it quick, we'll call it draft resolution 1. So it's Brazil, Russian Federation, and People's Republic of China. If you are an observer nation, we invite you to vote in this instance. We encourage you to vote if you would like. If not, that's still okay. But so for draft resolution 1, we will now vote. So yay or nays in the chat.
And just to repeat that, even if you are, even if you are an observer, please do feel welcome to vote just for the purposes of the resolution, since you have been a part of this committee.
Delegation of Belgium, we know you are having issues with your chat. If you would like to verbally announce your yay or nay, that is totally okay. And again, observer member states, if you would like to vote yay or nay, please feel welcomed and encouraged to. Okay, we are at a 50. Belgium, can you hear us? All right. So Secretariat, if you could assist me here. We're at a 50-50 vote. So how do you want to move with this?
I think given the number of delegates in committee, given that we're at 50-50 also, we'll move ahead to pass this resolution and move on to the second one.
So congratulations, delegates. Yeah. So draft resolution 1 passes, is now resolution 1. We will now move to draft resolution 2. If we could share the screen. Is there a delegate from that draft resolution who would like to share their screen?
I'm happy to share screen if no one.
Right.
Are you able to see my screen?
Thank you.
Great. Go ahead.
All right, and so I have to zoom back up here. So delegation of France, you motioned first when we were asking for people for your group. So how would you like to do the order?
Okay. So we're going to start off with the delegation of Italy will start, and then Indonesia, and then the delegation of France will end. If that's so pleases the Honourable Chair and Chairs, because that is the way we sort of decided in our group. Would that be in order?
Yeah, that is in order. Thank you, delegate. So delegation of Italy, if you'd like to start.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. The delegation of Italy would like to start off this resolution by saying that we agree with Brazil that climate change is not an economic issue, a fully economic issue. The delegation of Italy, along with France and Indonesia, has worked together to determine that international cooperation is the best way to conduct or to combat climate change as it relates to cultural heritage sites. We would also like to remind everyone to not forget that this is climate change related to protecting cultural heritage sites. The main preambles or resolution would be that we recognize that climate change is an important issue facing all countries across the world. We understand the fact that World Heritage sites are essential and the value of nations must be preserved. We recognize that policies are guiding principles. That are not created to undermine any legislative autonomy of individual nations and territories. We recognize that cultural heritage is not only physical, historical landmarks, but it also comes in the forms of traditions, people groups, and unseen histories. We develop a comprehensive understanding that plurality of collaboration creates more intelligent cohesion as presented by UNESCO. We are looking for actual global solutions to climate change. We don't want to be held down by political issues. We're looking for actual solutions. Italy would now like to pass on to Indonesia to present the clauses. Thank you.
Okay, so our first clause is implementing a subcommittee within UNESCO focused on research and obtaining information on climate, specifically for the World Health Sites. So we would be implementing a 3-tiered system which organizes the World Heritage Sites from most endangered to least endangered as it relates to climate change. The system will be a reference in order to determine where priority is needed to find information to help with these sites, and we'll use the information from other countries that are effectively combating climate change to help set countries within the tier system. We will create a funding program for the World Heritage Sites fight against climate change. And these funds are actively used against those sites in those immediate danger based on the 3-tiered systems. The funds will be collected from NGOs, the World Bank, climate change funds, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, the European Investment Bank, and the Green Climate Fund and the Adaptation Fund. I'll pass it over to France.
Thank you, Honourable Delegate. Clause 3 creates an advocacy program entitled My Climate, My Heritage. Organizes awareness campaigns on climate change in order to win public support for World Heritage sites. Consulting with climate change experts in creating advocacy programs to explain and expand the correlation between climate change and the protection of climate. Urges countries to come together to fight change as an international effort rather than a national one. Negating the juristic binding the capacity of a legal approach, but rather offering a policy appeal that calls for a juristic spirit of commitment when passing resolutions, understanding that policies can be morphed according to internal domestic law. And it's with this spirit that we present our draft resolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, delegates. So at this time, if there are any questions, please type a 1 in the chat and we will call attention to them.
Oh, my apologies. I wanted to reread the last section of the resolution. I will pull it back
up. The delegation of Italy can read the last section. So, clause 4, it urges countries to come together to fight climate change as an international effort rather than a national one. It negates the juristic binding, the capacity of a legal approach, but rather offering a policy appeal that calls for a juristic spirit of commitment when passing the resolutions. It understands that policies can be morphed according to internal domestic law. It basically saying that these policies are not binding and can be morphed according to the country using them. Thank you.
Delegation of Brazil, you have a question?
Thank you, most honorable chair. I do indeed have a question, and this one will be directed at the, actually, no, I do not have a specific delegation that I would like to direct this at. However, as the delegation of France so astutely noted, climate change is at least in part an economic issue. How will this resolution address the fact that the individual economic circumstances of some nations is different than others? And although some issues may not be formalized in law, policy is an aspect of climate change addressal that should be taken into consideration. How does this resolution recognize this fact?
The delegate of France would like to respond to that, please. This solution is exactly what United Nations and UNESCO, the spirit is based on. They are policy guidelines, and these policies are obviously collaborative in nature and are asking different nationalities and different delegations to look at them and to see how they can be implemented in terms of the context of their country. It is not jurisdically binding, so it can work, because when you look at the policy draft documents, as have been the case during the pandemic, and the delegate only refers to the pandemic because the pandemic has been a pivotal point in human history and has changed things. Once again, these are guidelines, and it is a collaborative approach telling countries, how would this affect your current status quo? How can your status quo benefit from it? And how can it be moved? In terms of funding, we listed funders who are ratified, who are actually creating programs and have the funds necessary to help countries which are developed and less developed. So it is looking at a communal approach, looking in a spirit of collaboration, and also looking as a guiding principles as imposition and invasion is not part of international diplomacy. Thank you very much.
The delegation of Brazil thanks the delegation of France for their comprehensive answer.
Thank you, delegate. Delegation of China, you have a question?
Yes. After reading this, and I had to read it twice to make sure that I was understanding. So please clarify, anyone who can do that for me. I'm trying to figure out if it's not binding. I believe that's what we're trying to do as well, not bind any countries to anything. If these are just guidelines, I believe our resolution also addresses that these are resolutions. These are things that we're trying to help you. That's why we're put in the subcommittee. As far as funding, yes, but those are all organizations for which we as nations fund. So we're still being a part of this. I understand your resolution, but I'm trying to figure out what the differences are and which one could be more effective, because if it's not binding, which we should not bind any countries to it, which we're not binding either, we're simply saying, let us work within our own frame to work out this on a national level rather than an international level. what is the difference between yours and ours, and how is it going to address it? Thank you for your time.
The dele-
Oh, you can. Okay, you can go.
the delegation would like to respond to this one. Thank you, delegation of China, for your question. We believe that this resolution it is international and can obtain funding more easily, and has a more. It includes more than just the BRICS countries. I believe we believe that this resolution is more inclusive and would be easier to implement and easier to gain funding from. Thank you.
The delegate of France apologizes. The delegate of France was kicked out. The delegate is back. Would also like to just support and concur with my honorable colleague, the delegate of Italy, by saying it is a collaborative fund that urges less developed and more developed countries to work together, but also doesn't want to have the parameters and the restriction of being within a BRIC construct, because a BRIC construct does have parameters and internal structures which are obviously necessary for BRIC to function. But we're looking at the notion that this global pandemic, because we understand global climate change issues as a pandemic, to be a global unified collaboration. And the fact that it's not binding is because if you bind it, you take away the pluralistic nature. And UNESCO 2019 report emphasizes a whole notion that pluralism of meaning has to work together in order to find solutions, so that internal law and internal structures are not basically disturbed within the guideline process and principles. Thank you.
Yeah, and if I can also comment, so like the three-tiered system within our subcommittee of UNESCO, it is that is an international system, and that is working with how we're trying to like connect how countries who are like more effectively combating climate change can help individual countries. So on an international effort, we're helping nations on their level, if that makes sense.
If I may make one more point, I'll remind all of my delegates that we've been talking about climate change for decades, for centuries. There was a proxy for which nations did not sign because it was too strenuous. And that's when we came up with the Paris Agreement, which is less strenuous and it protects the country's autonomy. So this is within those confines. Your tiers are still within that Paris Agreement. I'm trying to figure out what the difference is between the two. We're not saying don't cooperate. Our agreement says cooperate, of course, but you must do it within what the nation is able to do. I think that's what my question is trying to be.
So I can answer. Apologies, honorable delegate. Please go ahead. In Indonesia.
So the difference is, right, the Paris Agreement focuses on climate change as a whole, while we are solely focusing on heritage and the World Heritage Sites, if that makes sense.
Yes, thank you all for your time.
Okay, thank you. The delegate of France would like to ask the delegate, add, if the delegate may, that the major difference as the delegate of Indonesia so succinctly and aptly presented is not only
so sorry, France, you're going so fast again. I feel so bad for her because she's doing well.
Yeah.
We will wait for them to rejoin, and then and then Russian Federation, your question after, and then we'll move to a vote once that's done. And there have been, so we thank you all, first of all, for your understanding and your work, given the technical difficulties that have occurred. It is just the way online platforms go. France, you have the floor.
Thank you. The delegate of France thanks China for what China is offering, and would like to clarify once again the reason we find ourselves as a a community, a collaborative solution. And the difference is that we do not want to be inside the parameters of just a BRIC or another sub-autonomous arm that is already pre-existent. We want to understand that climate change is related in terms of conceptual ideology as outlined in the Cultural and Creative Industrial Policy in France of 2017, that we're trying to create this international global collaboration where it's not limited to pre-existing economic relations or benefits, but saying that it can be tackled in an individual platform, but one which is collaborative, and that it is not binding, so it doesn't take away nationalistic autonomy. So we would like to urge the previous delegation to perhaps to consider signing this without compromising or giving up BRIC agendas or BRIC juristic processes, but perhaps sign our resolution or come over to our resolution as a bilateral alternative, and also another collaboration with which those countries can form a part. So not giving up BRIC, not giving up autonomy, not giving up resolutions which work for that particular context, but perhaps expanding a context and being part of another route in trying to understand climate change, the crisis of climate change, and the crisis of climate change impact in terms of cultural heritage. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Delegate. The Russian Federation, you have a question?
The delegate of Russia thanks the delegates of Indonesia, France, and Italy for their presentation. The delegate of Russia is asking, the widespread disapproval in the resolution, how would you implement this? And with the widespread economic differences between Italy, between China, between Germany, between all these countries, how will you be able to implement common principle that everyone can agree on?
If the delegation of Italy may respond to this, firstly, the three-tiered system mentioned is specific. There should be no reason why this could not be implemented in all places. The main thing about this is that it's specifically for the protection of World Heritage sites. So it shouldn't be an issue of economics or politics. It's simply just protecting World Heritage sites as it pertains to climate change. Having a system to rank these and then funding to help them. There really shouldn't be any major disagreements. Our funding is not coming from the country itself. It's coming from outside organizations. Of course, the more the country wants to collaborate, the more it can. But if a country so chooses not to collaborate whatsoever, it doesn't have to.
Delegate of France would also like to add that it's not about finding a system that fits all. That's why we said the policies can be morphed. It's rather about creating a dialogue that understands the correlation between the climate crisis and the crisis about preserving cultural heritage as a human intellectual preservation and endeavor. When creating policies and guidelines, countries are free to come to the so-called round table or the metaphorical abstract table of conceptual discussion and amiable collaboration. Use those guidelines, take the goodness from them, and are able to morph. So it's not about finding unified solution and trying to find a ratified impositional law, but rather trying to have the spirit of UNESCO and the Greater UN, especially looking at post-World War II, when cultural heritage sites had to be restored and had to be preserved. And the way that spirit was tackled was in the terms of amiable collaboration and different countries having different resources coming together. So it's not about a hierarchical structure of imposition, but rather a collaborative approach that isn't coming from a pre-existing construct, such just to mention BRIC as an example, but any other construct, and say, this is unique, it has its unique context, and how can this context be of aid and create solution and find collaborative pluralistic solution as outlined by UNESCO 2019. Thank you very much.
Thank you, delegates. At this time, we are going to close questions and move to the vote. So we're going to call this draft resolution 2, just to make it simple. At this time, if any observing member state would like to participate in the vote, you are very much welcome to do so and encouraged to do so if you feel so. So at this time, nay or yeas for draft resolution 2. final call for votes. All right, so at this time, congratulations. Draft Resolution 2 has passed and is now Resolution 2. So we've passed our resolutions, so congratulations to both groups. Both resolutions were passed through. Is there a motion on the floor to close debate? Please type 1 in the chat if you'd like to motion. France, you can go first.
The delegation of France would like to thank you for recognizing the delegate honorable chair. The delegation of France would like to raise a motion to bring the conference to an end. Thank you.
Thank you, delegates. So that's a motion to close the debate and bring it close the debate. So we will now vote yay or nay. So if you could please vote now on the motion to close the debate. All right, so this motion clearly passes. So first of all, we want to thank you all for coming. Congrats on a successful committee. Congrats on your draft resolutions getting passed and becoming resolutions. And thank you all for participating. It's been a lot of fun. It's been exciting to chair this committee and listen to all the discussions you've all had. We'll rejoin the main stage for closing ceremonies and to find out who the award winners in your committee are. If you have questions or would like feedback on your performance, you're more than welcome to email us and we'll get back to you. And I'm going to pass this off now to if either of my co-chairs would like to talk or the secretariat.
I can talk. I will be doing the closing ceremonies in the main stage. So I'll leave it to Reina to close up and I'll meet you all over there.
So on the left-hand side of your screen, just click on stage and you'll see us show up there. One more time, I do just want to say thank you to all of you. I think you guys are much more articulate, even more so than I was at your ages. So I'm very, very impressed by what you've done here today and the resolutions you've passed. And do want to apologize again for the technical issues that we've had. Thank you for bearing with us. And also big shout out to your amazing chairs. I think they really made this committee what it was as well. So big thanks to you, Jordan, Aaron, and Harshal. And so now without further ado, we will meet you back at the stage for awards and closing.
Sorry, where do we go? I got kicked off, sorry, so I'm just back again.
No problem. So on the left side of the screen, you'll see above sessions, it says stage, and there's a little video camera icon.
Okay, so I just click on stage, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, but the debate is done, so if I can't come now because of electricity, I've done my bit. Thank you so much for an amazing session. I just want to thank all of you again. I've learned so much. It was like so nervous because I'm like so new, but thank you, and I hope you have a very good evening.
You did not. I know you're new because you told me previously. But honestly, you did not sound like you were fantastic.
Okay.
Great.
You did a great job.
Thank you. I hope to be able to participate in the future again.
Absolutely.
If you have one. Okay.
We'll say a few notes about how to stay involved during closing. So we definitely hope.
Okay. So I must just press stage now. I'm pressing stage.
Yes. See you there.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. Bye.
See you there.
See ya.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Closing Ceremonies. I'm personally so proud of every single delegate who was here today. As I was just telling them, I think they have been far more articulate and far more skilled negotiators than I was at their age. So I am incredibly impressed with each and every one of you here today. And thank you for sticking with us through the last 3-4 hours of debate. You have been absolutely incredible. And so without further ado, I'm sure you have very incredible diplomatic careers ahead of you, but for now, we want to present you with your awards. So I would like to hand it over to my secretariat member, Brandon Hermosa Ricci, to introduce our wonderful chairs and committees.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brandon. So thank you so much for all of you for participating in the first Westchester Model United Nations Conference. Even in light of the COVID pandemic shifting much of our society online, our group worked to provide a virtual platform for this event. Interestingly, this platform has allowed that our first ever Westchester Conference be a cross-collaborative engagement of transnational individuals from different countries. This international participation of young individuals is representative of what the purpose of the United Nations is. In an increasingly modernizing and interconnected world, the United Nations has increasingly become an instrumental institution to promoting peace, justice, and equity through civic dialogue. As Ambassador Okilo touched upon in opening this conference, we are all one humankind, and we truly are. The importance of UNESCO discussed today by the delegates in their conversations focused on cultural heritage and the increasingly exacerbating effects climate change is having on these locations. Even with the shared humanity, we saw today that societal, governmental, and cultural identities are diverse across continents, which may not always align with those of others. However, this diversity is the very soul of the United Nations, which as a result has created long-lasting, instrumental agreements that have improved the lives of many around our planet. For some of you, this is your first time, and for others, this is a repetitive experience. Regardless, the conversations had by the delegates touched upon challenging, real-world problems that the international community is facing today. Today, resolutions were passed, 2 of them in actuality, because of your legislative ingenuity, giving us pride and hope that all of you will continue to participate in international civic dialogue through the UN, however you may. The Westchester United Nations Association encourage all of you to continue your engagements. Following this conference, we will send a follow-up email how you may all continue engaging with us. We also welcome any questions you may have. For our Westchester residents based in New York, we welcome you to join the UNA organization as we have many events in the future that will help individuals actively participate at the local level. From the entire WestMUN team, thank you and please continue using your voices to make our tomorrow better than today. As cliche as that sounds, your engagement today has given us hope and pride that there are voices championing good in every country and every continent. As the late Kofi Annan, the 7th Secretary General of the United Nations said, more than ever before in human history, we share a common destiny. We can master it only if we face it together. And that, my friends, is why we have the United Nations. This conference was a great representation of the youth that will soon fill that in the future. At this point, I will move to present the chairs that have been working to make this conference efficient and informative, even in light of the technical difficulties. These chairs are Jordan Bramley, Aaron McIntyre, and Herschel Shett, who will present the closing ceremony awards. I'll begin by handing this off to Jordan Bramley.
All right, so thank you. It was a great committee. I was very honored to chair it. So I will start with the Best Public Speaker Award. And for this award, we are giving it to Italy, who was represented by Jacob Roque. So congratulations to Italy on Best Public Speaker. And then we can move to another chair for the next award.
Hello, everyone. Thank you once again for participating and taking the time out of your day. I'll be presenting the award for the Best Delegate. The Best Delegate Award goes to Brazil, who was represented by Irene Olayenka. Congratulations.
Hi everyone, I'll be presenting the Honorable Mention Award So the Honorable Mention Award goes to Indonesia, which is represented by Alexandria Carson. And I will also be presenting the Best Negotiator Award, which goes to France, represented by Zeta Zara Amata Wanamaker. So congratulations.
So to close, I just want to say once again, congratulations to all of the delegates. Unfortunately, we could only give 4 awards today. All of you who came here today, debated, and passed resolutions are absolutely winners and winners in Model United Nations. I hope, as Brandon said, that you'll stay engaged with us for future Model UN opportunities, as well as other opportunities with UNA Westchester. We'll be getting in touch with you to let you know how. And from myself, the chairs, the secretariat, and the board of UNA, see you next time, and thank you.